Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who as well. Peace and salutation to the elect. My name is Ainan. The title of this video is Listen to Our King. Right, and I said that because, basically our king is Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Right, so that's Yahweh Shai, of course, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and then under that will be King David. Right, once our kingdom is brought back to life, and we were in our rest and whatnot. But basically, I got a few examples here in the Second Samuel that I wanted to read regarding our enemies and things like that, and just listening to the kings, because right now we're under subjection to our enemies, right? But the scriptures have commanded us to wait upon our king, right? Our king is returning, Yahweh Shai, right? So, like I said, the government body, of course, would be Yahweh Shai, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and under that would be King David, right? And Yahweh Shai is coming back to set up that kingdom. So anyway, this is Jeremiah 30:8. It says, "For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him." Right, so the day is coming, fastly approaching, where the Lord Yahweh is going to break the bonds that the Edomites put us in, and they will no longer be our masters, right? The roles will switch. It says Jeremiah 30:9, "But they shall serve the Lord Yahweh their power, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them." Right? So it says, therefore fear not, therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. Right? The scriptures now let us know, and even, we know, but the scriptures prophesy that, we will be in fear for life, in constant fear of our life. So a rest is going to be allowed, basically when the Lord returns. It says, "For I am with thee, saith the Lord Yahweh, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all the nations whether I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished." So pretty much that's the point. The Lord Yahweh is going to raise up David, our king, and the kingdom will be established, right? And we'll have rest, and we will no longer be troubled by our enemies. So I just got that to let you know that David, is our king. And here's Second Samuel, and starting at the first chapter, David is basically anointed. Well, you get the second chapter. David made king over Judah, and then you continuing on, he's made king over all of Israel, right? Basically. So the point I want to get is that David had enemies, just like we have enemies now, right? And basically, people that was with David thought because David had these enemies that if they killed David's enemies, he would be pleased. And the point is, that's not the message, or that's not the instructions of the king. The instructions of our king is to wait on him, right? Which, of course, that's Zephaniah 3:8, and I'm gonna grab that, But that's the point, that's the whole message right there. So this is an example. It says David learns of Saul's death, right? So I'm gonna get two things, because we know that Saul was the first king over Israel, right? And then the second king became King David. So read it from 2 Samuel 1:1. It says, "Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites," right, which are those JOOs over in the land of Israel today. It says, "And David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came even to pass on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent, and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance," right, which, pay respect. It says, and David said unto him, "From whence comest thou? From whence comest thou?" It says, and he said unto him, out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, how went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, that the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead also. Right. So in the history, Saul was pursuing David, right? But David, knowing that Saul was anointed of Yahweh, did not kill him, right? Even though Saul pursued David, David did not kill him. David did not want to lay hands on him. It says, and David said unto the young man that told him, how knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan, his son, be dead? And the young man that told him said, as I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me, and I answered, here I am. And he said unto me, who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. He said unto me again, stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. Right. So there was a war, and going to the history, Saul was basically in prophecy, he was supposed to die in this battle, because the kingdom was basically taken from him and given to David. So this was the battle that it was already prophesied that he would lose, right? So it says here that he was still alive but hurt, So he was asking the God to slay him. It says, so I stood, and this Amalekite is explaining this to David. And once again, this Saul is an enemy of David. It says, so I stood upon him, but they're both Israelites, but Saul was pursuing him. It says, so I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord Yahweh, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, how wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth have testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. Right. So it was the Lord that did this. The Lord allowed Saul to fall, and this Amalekite finished the job. So that's us waiting on our king, Yahushua, to return, right? Before we do anything, right? We're not going to do anything to these devils, right? Us that are true worshipers of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua in this truth, right? So, and then I have another point, but let me see. I guess I'll read this point too. So now this is another point where David enemies were killed, right? And it wasn't, basically supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to go down like that, but it was ordained by the Lord. Basically, the Lord allowed this to happen that way. Second Samuel 4:1. Oh, matter of fact, hold on. Yeah, this is it. So I'll read it. 2 Samuel 4:1, it says, and when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had two men that were captains of bands. The name of the one was Banah, and the name of the other Rechab, the sons of Rimmon, a Beerothite of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin. It says, and the Beerothite fled to get them, and were sojourners there until this day. It says, and Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephi Bashet. All right. It says, and the sons of Rimmon, the Berothite, Rechab, and Banah went and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. Right. So Ishbosheth was an enemy to David because basically the kingdoms were pretty much split. You know, you had because David was made king over Judah, and then Ishbosheth made king over Israel. See, and then it goes on to say civil war, right? So now this is another enemy of David. But we understand, you know, like I explained earlier, that the kingdom was prophesied to be given to David, right? Just like what we're prophesied to get the new kingdom, right? After all the beasts of the earth are done away with, right? Which is the empires, you know, then the last empire will be set up, that of the Israelites. So yeah, so they went to Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the fifth rib, and Rechab and Banah his brother escaped. For when they came into the house, he lay on his bed in his bedchamber, and they smote him and slew him and beheaded him and took his head and gat them away through the plain all night. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, behold, the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life. Is not the Edomites seeking our life today, right? Here in this captivity. And the Lord Yahweh have avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and his seed. And David answered Rechab and Banah his brother, the sons of Rimmon, the Berothite, and said unto them, as the Lord Yahweh liveth, who have redeemed my soul out of all adversity, when one told me, saying, behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag, who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. Right. So that's the same mindset. You know, don't think that the Most High is going to reward you in these last days for being carnal and scratching your hand against the Edomites, because he's going to handle the Edomites in his choosing, in his way. Right. And I'm going to get a few ways to bring that out. It says, how much more when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand and take you away from the earth? It says, and David commanded his young men, and they slew them and cut off their hands and their feet and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron. So as you can see, David had enemies, and the men around David went in and killed his enemies and brought him, you know, his head and said, look, we kill your enemies. Aren't you happy? And David basically said no. So the mindset of it is that what? We of the hopeful elect, our weapons are not carnal, because the Lord Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh said, wait upon him until he rise up to the prey. Right, and I'll grab it. Zephaniah 3:8, it says, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh. This is the command from the king. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nation. See, there's a whole plan going on, right? If you do anything other than what's written, you're going off plan, right? You can't be a soldier in the Lord's army if you can't listen to the commands. It says that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So, you know, you go off plan, you gonna mess up the whole plan. So that's why we're waiting on our king to return, right? 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. It says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh, through the pulling down of strongholds. It says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of Yahweh, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Yahweh Shai, and having in readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. So what's the point? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, right? We're not taking up arms against the government, against these Edomites, and doing any harm to them. We're waiting on our Lord because our Lord is going to, avenge us on them, right? We don't have to do anything. We're waiting on them. That's the point, right? So don't think that you're doing good by getting carnal. That's not the message from the king. And then even Psalm 33 goes into, let you know that these are enemies. This is Psalm 83:1. It says, keep not thou silence, O Yahweh, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. See, so we're praying to the Lord and let him know that our enemies are against us, right? And we're waiting on him, though, because he's going to make the first move. It says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So this is what all our enemies around us are doing. All the nations around us are trying to cut us off from being a nation, right? They're trying to stop the way to the truth, right? Attacking brothers, trying to infiltrate camps and all of this, right? Putting out false narratives and all of that. It says, for they have consulted together one consent. They are confederate against thee. It goes in to list these nations, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have Hopan, the children of Lot, Selah. Right, so these are our enemies, right? But hey, we're waiting on the Lord, and our weapons are not are carnal. So the point is, I want to grab this. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 39 and verse 28. It says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. See, the Lord is the creator of all things, heaven and earth, and all that is in it, right? So these spirits are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In a time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. So Yahweh has a plan set up, right? We're going to be good. It's already a plan set up. We just got to wait. It says fire and hell and famine and death. All these were created for vengeance. Teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction. See, so we don't have to do nothing. The Most High has a special plan laid out for these devils, right? It says they shall rejoice in his commandment. See, the command, you have to get the command to do something. You don't have that command to attack Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, right? It says they shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon earth when need is, and when their time is come, they shall not transgress his word. So when the time comes for these devils to get it, the Most High Yahweh is going to allow that to happen. Just like you've seen David's enemies got what they got. So our enemies are going to get what's coming to them real soon, right? Through the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, not through our own power. See? Because why? So, so it can be some individuals that he used, to do those things in that time. It won't be us, the men of the Lord, the prophets, the ones that's, doing these things in sincerity and truth, while we're waiting on our king. It says, 1 Thessalonians 5:1 says, but of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. It says, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord Yahweh so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So that's our enemies. So in that time, those vengeance, those spirits created for vengeance they're gonna do what they do. Right? We just gotta wait. It says, but ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. It says, ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. It says, we are not of the night nor of darkness. Right? Why? Because we're the hopeful elect, the hopeful 1/3 of the Israelites that's going to, get salvation when our Lord King Yahushua returns. Lord King Yahushua, right? It says, therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. So we watching, but we're sober, right? We got our popcorn and everything gonna play out how it needs to play out. Our enemies will be dealt with, all right? It says, for they that sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. It says, but let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet the hope of salvation. It says, for Yahweh have not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Yahweh Shai. Hey, that's beautiful. And that's pretty much the point, you know. You just gotta wait. The Lord gonna do what he do, right? These nations gonna get it. With that, I'll say shalom to those elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.